On one hand, the Prime Minister says he didn't pressure the former Attorney General, Jody Wilson-Raybould, to make a deal with SNC-Lavalin to help them avoid fraud and corruption charges. He said he respects the rule of law. On the other hand, in the same sentence, he says it's important to stand up for Canada's economy. So is he standing up for SNC-Lavalin to protect thousands of jobs in Quebec? Did he put improper pressure on Jody Wilson-Raybould? Did his top advisor, Gerald Butts, resign to protect him? To help unravel all this, let's bring in MPs. What a week. Marco Mendicino is a Liberal MP for Ontario. Lisa Raitt is the Conservative Deputy Leader and her party's Justice Critic. She's in Toronto. And Murray Rankin is the NDP's Justice Critic. He is also here in Ottawa. Good morning to everyone. Let me start with Lisa Raitt. The government's defense, it appears, after the clerk of the Privy Council appeared at a Justice Committee, and I know you were on that committee, was yes, there was pressure on Jody Wilson-Raybould. Just not improper pressure. It was all legal, and if she felt otherwise, she should have spoke up earlier. What's your response to that?
Well, it's ridiculous. First of all, this is a criminal prosecution. The decision had been taken, and it was communicated to SNC-Lavalin on September 4th. On September 17th, Jody Wilson-Raybould told the Prime Minister and the Clerk of the Privy Council in no uncertain terms she wasn't going to overrule her deputy on the matter. That's where it should end. It should not go on from there. And yet we see time and time again through phone calls, through meetings between her staff and the PMO, the Prime Minister himself, Gerald Butts, and whoever else that we'll find along the way, all took it upon themselves to go in and check in with her and see whether or not she's taken another decision and decide to illuminate her on other issues that may be of concern. And I'll tell you, one thing in the testimony that really bothered me was when he said that he told, meaning the Clerk of the Privy Council, that he called her December 19th of his own initiation and said, the Prime Minister is very anxious and cabinet ministers are very anxious as well. That has nothing to do with her decision making on whether or not to have criminal charges proceed in a court proceeding.
Okay.
And I think that was at the end of it all, that was their final attempt to pressure her.
Okay, so the clerk admitted all that, Murray Rankin. He's open about it. He says, yeah, I met with her. Yeah, I spoke with her. If she had any problem with any of this, she could have gone to the ethics commissioner. She could have called the Prime Minister. She didn't have to become the Minister of Veterans Affairs. She never did. Welcome to have policies made. We talk all the time. That's it. What do you make of that?
Because there's a difference, Evan, between being Minister of Justice, like any other cabinet minister, and hearing what people have to say around the table, and acting as the independent final officer of the law. That is the Attorney General's function. And once no means no, you've said that, why are they continuing to browbeat her?
But is that illegal? But my question is, that's a great question, but is it improper to do so?
It is improper to pressure people. It's certainly improper, the Prime Minister acknowledged it, to direct her to do something, because that's her job, not his, not anybody else's. That's what an independent Attorney General has to do. But to browbeat her, there's clearly a line that was crossed. It seems.
Let me ask you, Mr. Rankin, because you were also on the Justice Committee. Should she have spoken up at that point? That's what the clerk said. She goes, well, I don't know what her view is. My view, it was totally legal. I stand by it. If she didn't like it, she should have said something.
So what part of no don't you understand, Mr. Wernick and colleagues and Prime Minister? I've told you no. The decision was made by somebody else. I'm not going to change my mind. Now, why do you keep talking to me if you're not trying to pressure me? Don't you understand? No. That's what she should have said. And now you're saying, oh, she should have called the Prime Minister's office or something. He's open 24/7. That isn't how it works.
Well, I think, Mr. Mendicino, let me ask you this. September 4th, the decision is made by the Department of Public Prosecution. We are not giving them a deferred prosecution agreement for SNC-Lavalin. As Lisa Raitt says, the government knows that by mid-September, the 17th. Why do they keep badgering or talking to the Attorney General at that point to try to get her to change the mind?
Well, I reject that characterization, as I reject both Murray and Lisa's. Look, the government had an obligation to continue to bring all information which it felt would have been or could have been relevant in the decision as to whether or not to revisit the DPP's decision to not invite SNC.
To revisit.
And that is an ongoing. So hold on, let me just. No, I want to. But I also want to tease out.
They wanted her to revisit the decision.
I want to be clear about this.
No.
There is an ongoing responsibility of the DPP and all prosecutors to consider information as it comes into the public domain. And so the government, knowing information, brought that information to the attention of the Attorney General. Now, as a result,
fair question. What was the new information? Was it lobbying efforts by SNC, or was there genuinely new information?
Well, as you heard from Mr. Wernick, he was bringing to the attention of the then Attorney General information that was coming to the attention of the government of the time. Yeah. So that is a responsibility, and you would expect them to do so if it was going to potentially impact innocent third parties who might have been impacted by this. So the whole point of the DPA regime, Evan, is to avoid any harm being done to innocent parties like the workers of a large corporation. Now, it has been much maligned by the opposition as a get-out-of-jail-free card. It is not that. You had this tool. It's a legal tool. It was debated in both the House and the Senate, and it is now on the books.
Okay, let me bring Lisa Raitt. But hold on. Let's not debate the merits of it. The question, she said, I'm not going to use it. Now the question is when to use it. Lisa Raitt, what's your response to what Mr. Mendicino said?
Well, we're getting new information in from Mr. Mendicino. And again, I think this is the 9th time that the story of the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister's office has changed. Now they were just giving her new information. Well, the Director of Public Prosecutions also wrote SNC-Lavalin and said, thank you for all of the information you provided. This was in October. No again. We're not going to give you the deferred prosecution agreement. And Jody Wilson-Raybould, again, did not change her mind. That's where it stops. You cannot badger the Attorney General's office until you get the decision you want. And it's not Jody Wilson-Raybould. It's the office of the Attorney General, the independent final legal officer in this country on criminal prosecutions. And if you don't have respect for it, and it certainly doesn't seem as if those people who are continuing to badger the office, they don't have respect for it, that is not good within our government. It's going to get exposed, and there are going to be serious repercussions.
Yeah, okay. So she resigns. We haven't talked about that. And she says the importance of the independent role of the Attorney General has to be put forward. And then Mr. Butts resigns and speaks about Jody Wilson-Raybould, the Attorney General. Like, what's going on here?
But Mr. Rankin, what's the clerk of the Privy Council's argument is pretty interesting. He says, look, the system works. We brought forward information to her. I'm totally okay with it. She said no. They didn't get the deferred prosecution.
Story closed.
Well, what's your response to that? I'm
attempted
intrigued.
Political interference with the
she
independent
got fired
administrator.
and they replaced her.
Exactly. She was fired. She couldn't be directed, but she was fired.
Well, to be
That's
fair,
what happened.
just before I'm not trying to do the liberal job here, but she was moved to Veterans Affairs, and a cabinet shuffle is the purview of the Prime Minister.
Totally.
Why is that
Absolutely.
sinister?
Absolutely. She obviously was removed, is that a nicer word, from her role as Attorney General because she wouldn't do somebody else's bidding. And then, for reasons that's yet to be disclosed,
Yes.
that wasn't about spending more time with his family. If you read the letter of resignation from Jerry Butts, it was he adverted to the Attorney General and how he groomed her to be a candidate, etc. Like, come on, what's going on here?
All right, I have about a couple seconds here. Jody Wilson-Raybould will speak either Tuesday or Wednesday. Lisa Raitt, what questions going forward do you have?
I want to know why she resigned. I want to know what the trigger was for her to move from Veterans Affairs, a job that she said she loved, and I don't doubt that she was going to enjoy it because she continued to do the duties after she had resigned. And what prompted her to do it? What prompted her to want to speak to Cabinet in confidence? And I want to know what happened.
And what questions, Mr. Rankin, do you have?
I want to know why she stood up in an unprecedented way in our House of Commons last week and said, I want to speak my truth. I wanted to do so. I wanted to do so with the committee, and I don't want to hear that she can't talk about this because of solicitor-client privilege, or no, we don't know if we can waive these rules. I want to hear from her. Canadians deserve to hear why the former Attorney General was removed and why she felt she had to speak out about the importance of an independent Attorney General.
All right, well, we shall see. It's a huge day. I got to leave it there. I know there's lots more to talk about. Mr. Mendicino, Ms. Raitt, and Mr. Rankin, thank you all. I know you'll have a busy week coming up.